What's good, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to yet another installment of What If Deku Had the Venom Symbiote. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys and completely transparent for a second. I haven't recorded a part of this series in like 3 days, so if I'm a little shaky and rusty, please do forgive me. That said though, I hope you guys go on to enjoy the finale of What If Deku Had the Venom Symbiote. And also, I hope you guys go on to stay tuned for the movie version of this. Maybe just go like the video and comment, I watched the series, or something like that. But that said, if you've made it to the end, please just comment #Venom down below, and also make sure to like the video and all of the previous parts if you didn't already, because it definitely helps with the algorithm. That said, enjoy.
Hey Ross, sauce it up.
Alright, like I said, we pick up our story with the final exams. Alright, I'm just gonna be honest, Izuku does not have to study. I mean, let's be realistic. Venom has knowledge of millions and millions of years. Izuku's chances of failing an exam as simple as the high school level at UA are close to zero. I mean, I get it, they're probably college level problems and equations, but it's like, come on now, like, he's not gonna fail that. There is no way, no conceivable way Venom wasn't paying attention to all of the lessons with his like insane memory that Izuku is going to fail. So the thing we're gonna be jumping into are just the final battles between his teachers and the students. So let's get into that. So just like in canon, I'm going to be having Bakugo be Izuku's teammate just due to the fact that, I mean, let's be realistic here. Deku and Bakugo still aren't on the best of terms, so the reasoning is still there. And when it comes to Bakugo and Izuku's relationship, it hasn't quite advanced as far as the one in the usual canon has. So Bakugo is still going to be a prick, and he's still obviously just going to be like, I'm not listening to your plan, Izuku. I'm gonna go fight All Might. You can run if you want. But Izuku's like, alright then Bakugo, do your thing. And while Bakugo was getting the absolute mess beaten out of him by All Might, getting kneed in the stomach, getting his face slammed into the ground, Izuku just walks his way, jumping rooftop to rooftop, using his webs to sling himself as close as he possibly can to the finish line, and then just activating his insane super speed to just, you know, going to do what it is that he needs to get done. I mean, Izuku knows that to beat All Might, he's probably just gonna have to outrun him. I mean, it's pretty simple. You know what I mean? Like, run away from All Might, make it to the finish line, you win. He doesn't even have to fight him. But once he makes it to the end, Venom stops his body from moving. Venom is like, we will fight him. And Izuku's like, Venom, dude, what are you? Dude, this is not okay. Venom's like, I want to test my strength. Sorry for the horrible impression, guys. I seriously am, but I have to do it. I can't make a what if on Venom and not do the voice. I'm sorry. You guys are going to have to deal with it. But hear me out. So what ends up happening is basically Venom makes Izuku turn towards All Might, who just appeared in front of him and said, haha, Midoriya. If you were any smarter, you would have ran out that door. Venom cracks his knuckles before going on to create double scythes and blitzing at All Might with speed that All Might did not see coming. He barely dodged the scythe by a hair. Venom then transformed them into gigantic like fists that have like spikes on them and then pounded on All Might, sending this man crashing through 2 entire buildings, with All Might coming out of it thinking to himself that, yeah, this kid, a lot stronger than he thought. Izuku would look at All Might and tell him, so All Might, something I forgot to explain to you, but you know that little ability you have? I have it too. Venom copied it a bit. All Might hearing this is like, what? Before then suddenly Izuku blitzes at him at speeds that All Might did not expect to come from Izuku whatsoever, and the man gets clobbered, to say the least. Venom goes into his gigantic symbiote buff like Big Daddy Chungus mode and just proceeds to destroy this man All Might. It's not even a competition. Venom is having the time of his life and Izuku's trying to get back control. He eventually does, but the damage is done and All Might would revert back to his Small Might form, which ends up showing the entirety of the class, hey, our teacher just shrunk to like a skeletal form of himself. What's going on? the students off to be briefed on All Might's sickness and how, he fought against this crazy villain. They're like, oh, we understand. We'll keep it a secret. Aoyama, the traitor he is, tells All for One. And now this is sort of a big opportunity for everybody, since the next thing that happens is the forest thing. Since All Might and the rest of the class now knows about All Might's weakness, he's able to go and be in his skeletal form without having to retain his buff All Might form all day, and so he's actually going to be present for the forest training. Izuku is, I'm going to be honest with you guys, not even going to be paying much of an attention to Koda, just because he's distracted with Venom. I mean, cool, at least he's a sad kid, but Venom's his friend, and he just hangs out with Venom the whole time. So instead, I'm going to just be saying that All Might is the one who ends up fighting against Muscular on that fateful night. And Izuku is out hiding, who knows, doing who knows what in the forest, just playing the hide and go seek that they're playing in the forest, right? He's doing his thing, yada yada yada. Randomly, this dude with like a gas cord comes in out of nowhere, and Izuku gets covered by the symbiote completely, leading to the symbiote rushing at the villain known as Mustard and beating the mess out of this man, to the point where the villain was just unable to do a thing to this man. What's it called? Tetsu doesn't even get his crazy moment with Kendo, and what ends up essentially happening is Izuku runs through the forest looking for the rest of his classmates, with Venom's senses allowing him to find Bakugo and Todoroki early on so that he could help them defeating that one villain with the gigantic metal teeth. They do so, and eventually they end up running into Tokiyami, who is savagely attacking Dupli Arms. They rush in, and Izuku would actually end up telling Todoroki to use his fire quirk. He does so, and Tokiyami is able to regain control over Dark Shadow once more, and following this small altercation, what I believe ends up essentially happening is all of them end up kind of gathering together in a sense. They end up rushing towards Uraraka and Tsuyu's direction, and eventually the capture of Tokiyami as well as Bakugo still ends up happening just like it would have in canon, except with more of a fight from Izuku, who would have had his senses spike up, and he would have actually caught Mr. Compress in the act. So they would have ended up catching Mr. Compress earlier than in canon. What ends up happening is essentially the villains would end up rushing in towards the direction of the heroes, being like, oh crap, Mr. Compress got caught, you know what I mean? The villains come in and try to help him, and all of the hero students end up getting into this big clash with the actual League of Villains members. Eventually though, Zuko is able to come on top alongside his other classmates like Bakugo and Todoroki, and what ends up essentially happening is they're able to not actually be kidnapped by the villains. But when Kurogiri ends up trying to retreat and do all this crazy stuff, Izuku ends up telling them that these villains are going to Tartarus. Kurogiri just is angry, he ends up disappearing, and All for One, once he hears the news that he lost 7 of his most powerful villains, he's not having it. He ends up opening a portal straight to that location, and the fight between All Might and All for One ends up happening at a totally different location than at the Kamino incident that ends up happening in canon. The fight still goes just like it would have in canon. All for One still ends up pulling Shigaraki Tomura is Nana Shimura's grandson, you know what I mean? Izuku finding this out and All Might finding this out are like, yo, that's kind of crazy. Izuku doesn't have that same relationship with All Might, but once All Might begins getting outclassed a bit, I guess you could say, Izuku's able to jump in using his symbiote to rush in at All for One and actually land one good blow to catch All for One off guard long enough for All Might's punch to go through and defeat the weakened All for One. However, what ends up happening is only All Might and Izuku are the ones nearby, seeing as the battle clash is too powerful and everybody was advised to leave the area. No cameras are around and Venom was feeling a bit hungry, thinking to himself, this dude's a total scumbag. I'm gonna eat this dude. He takes control of Izuku and down the hatch. All for One, he got eaten by Deku, and yeah, he gets eaten. Go figure. All right, so what ends up happening after this is All Might is like, dude, what did you just do? And Izuku explains to him that Venom likes eating people. All Might says that he'll let it slide, seeing as he wants to also try to kill All For One himself. They end up having a good laugh, and All Might ends up poking fun at Izuku's strange abilities, and also telling him that he will be a great symbol of peace someday, with him telling Izuku that he's proud of him and thank you for that assistance, saying that he didn't know what way that battle would have gone had it not been for Izuku's help. Izuku would end up telling All Might not to worry about it, and from here they end up returning back to school, where they proceed to have the provisional license exam. No villain like infiltration stuff like that ends up happening, and instead Shigaraki is left to pick up the pieces of the League of Villains. Of course he's spiteful, he wants to go after them, but what is he really gonna do? I mean, Shigaraki still goes off to train with like half the manpower with the Gigantomachia. But let's just be realistic here. I mean, Shigaraki, with his little squad that he had with him in canon, was barely able to make it happen. I doubt this man-child version of Shigaraki, without the assistance of One For All, is going to be able to do a thing. So what ends up essentially happening is Shigaraki just becomes this background villain that's going to be handled off screen, and what ends up going on like behind the scenes is essentially they go on to have their provisional hero license exam. I don't enjoy covering this arc due to the fact that there are no real repercussions. It's not interesting to me, and Izuku still gets his provisional hero license regardless. Todoroki and Bakugo, they still fail, and everybody else has a great time during this thing. That said, we eventually cut to Mirio and the Big Three's introduction to UA and Mirio's eventual beatdown of the class. This doesn't change for any reason in the world, so Mirio still goes on to beat down the entire classroom, reminding them that he is the big dog in the entire UA area. They all kind of have like a little bit of a rude awakening, and what ends up essentially going down from here is Izuku is able to actually, with his like spider senses thingy-majigger, is able to actually sense Mirio's oncoming attack. So when he was faking the attack, even with Izuku's eyes closed, Venom was able to actually dodge out of the way and send a haywire hammer fist straight to his face, sending him flying out the wall, which Mirio just permeated right through. Izuku, seeing this happening, would be like, oh wow, and Mirio just shoots right back through the wall, saying that is some quirk, before then going on to essentially introduce Izuku to Sir Night-Eye, with him gladly accepting the internship offer. What ends up happening following this altercation is the eventual mishap that happens in the alleyway, where Eri comes in and bumps into Izuku. Izuku still picks her up like in canon, noticing the bandages, with Venom looking towards the alleyway, saying, "There, here he is, the villain." And Izuku looks to Venom, like metaphorically, I guess you could say, and then says, so what do we do about him? Venom just looks towards Izuku and says, can we eat him? And Izuku just looks at him and says, no, we're done eating people. From here, Venom says, fine. And from here, he shoots a spider web right at Overhaul's direction, which Overhaul is quickly able to just hold on to and just destroy. He overhauls it essentially. Izuku rips off that tendril from his body, and what ends up happening next is Mirio is, I guess there's no other choice. He ends up phasing down and uppercutting this man Overhaul, sending him flying towards the wall, where he holds his jaw and he's like, that hurt. He ends up putting his hands to the ground and shooting these gigantic rock pillars at their direction, which ends up causing them to have to jump back in fear. And eventually what ends up going down is Izuku and everybody else who was present there, meaning, Mirio and Eri, are simply left to watch as Mirio single-handedly went on to take out Overhaul without any goons, without any interference. I wholeheartedly believe Mirio could stomp this man Overhaul if Eri was not there, and he would do that. Overhaul also had no access to his quirk destroying bullets, so Mirio went on to just beat this man. Like, he beat this man like a rag doll, while Izuku kept Eri distracted and told her not to worry about it. He then went on to take Eri to the police station, and there was when he met up with Mirio, who brought Overhaul in, and they ended up essentially doing a full raid on his place that he stays at. Every single villain that was captured in the original still ends up getting captured, and the series of villains ends up essentially ending there. I'm not sure what happens next. I'm pretty sure it's the school UA festival that ends up happening following these events, but it kind of just escapes me at the moment. No, yeah, it is. The gentle criminal fight happens, but Izuku's just way stronger than our canon version. So it's honestly just a one-sided stomp that I don't even want to cover. And when it comes to the next arc, like Class 1A and Class 1B's joint training arc, I mean, go figure. Izuku this time doesn't end up unlocking, Black Whip, instead having an ability that is way better in terms of Venom's tendrils that literally never run out and can go long distances. I mean, he can create webs like close people's mouths by shooting at them, create like webs that he can trap his opponents in, like pull his opponents to him and throw them away using his webs. Izuku's quirk is all in all very versatile, and the weapons that he has at disposal to with Venom and also One for All being an addition to it alongside Bakugo's explosion quirk, it's all very incredible to Izuku. He has access to a plethora of attacks and abilities, and Izuku takes full account of this. I mean, he takes full and utter advantage of the things that are put in front of him. I mean, Izuku's not just going to deny it, he's going to accept these things gladly. So what ends up happening following this is Izuku just goes on with UA like a normal student. Overhaul is taken care of, All for One is taken care of, and Shigaraki just turns into some random creepy dude who ends up spying on UA whenever he can, only to get caught up lacking one day and eventually thrown into Tartarus, following his example of his late mentor, All for One. And that marks the ending to today's series of What If Deku had the Venom Symbiote. I embarked on this mission to finish this What If, and that's exactly what I did. So at least do your boy a favor and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, as well as hit that like button if you haven't already. That said though, I love each and every single one of you guys. Make sure to check out the artist down below in the description who made the thumbnail, and shoot a like, a follow, whatever you guys do. Let her know that I sent you. That said, I love you guys dearly. It's been your boy Zether, and I'll see you all next time.